Romance at a glance. Romance at a glance.
What you saying now?
Romance at a glance.
Go ahead, girl.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Romance at a Glance. Today's book is Lover Revealed, part of the Black Dagger Brotherhood. I am Bridget, here with my co-host, as always, is Shani. How you doing today, Shani?
Hola, Bridget.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, bien.
Today, I just want to give a quick shout out to a few of our friends who've had some fun comments on Insta.
Oh, yes. Insta's popping.
Yes, SCI_Camilla, on board with the throuple. We are so happy to hear that, and also that you were inspired to reread and fall in love with Mary again, because we love ourselves some Mary.
And shout out to Shelf Addiction, who I met at She Podcast, who's really dope. She got the refeels when she reread Rage and Mary's story. She also has a book podcast with more than just romance, so check her out at Shelf Addiction.
And if you love all things Black Dagger, check out Black_Dagger Brotherhood and the B Dagger B. Two great accounts. They have fun book covers, signed books, book quotes, and all those Black Dagger brothers in style.
If you too want to be shouted out, hit us up on Instagram and we may choose your comment. But only if you're team throuple.
Throuple for life!
Throuple for life! Hashtag.
You ready to get poppin', Shani?
I'm ready to get poppin', Bridget.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
It's good and nasty.
Welcome to another episode of Romance at a Glance. Today, I am your host, Bridget, and as always, I have with me my co-host, Shani. How are you doing, Shani?
I'm doing great. Now that we're talking about the Black Dagger Brotherhood, book 4, I'm so ready to get into this book.
I'm ready. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 3. Shani, tell them what we're covering all season long.
All season long, we are covering J.R. Ward's The Black Dagger Brotherhood. We are here for the brothers.
Yes, we certainly are. And we've got some fun goodies on Patreon this week, so if you head over, you can catch some behind the scenes of us, mostly of me just messing up and saying stupid things, and some of Shani dropping some wisdom and us talking about relationships and our own personal lives.
Absolutely. And if you want to talk to us about the Black Dagger Brotherhood, you can head over to our Patreon, where Discord is one of our perks. We're going to have the conversation going all the time. You can directly talk to us and each other. And after we are finished with the Black Dagger Brotherhood, we'll be talking about all the other romance novels that we get into.
Yeah, subscribe to our show. And remember, if Black Dagger Brotherhood isn't for you, you're crazy. And also, up next, we have contemporary reads in the summer, historicals coming at you in the fall, and then a fun holiday mashup to finish out the year. We got a lot of romance coming your way.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna get nasty.
Today I have a special surprise for Shani. I'm going to hit you with some J.R. Ward facts.
What?
At the top of every episode for the rest of the season. So today's fun facts are, her real name is Jessica Rowley Pell Bird Blakemore. And she is a highfalutin, tootin' lady. She wears the pearls. She lives in a big mansion in the South. She's an impressive lady.
Is she a socialite?
It seems to be that she's a socialite. I've seen pictures of her at derbies and hats. Fancy hat. She's a fancy hat lady. But she also runs and publishes like 5 books a year. So I'm not sure where she squeezes in socialite time, but she squeezes it in.
How do you publish 5 of these books a year?
I just made that up. I don't think it's 5. I think it's like 2.
Okay.
But still 2 is crazy.
Yeah.
Because this is a lot.
These are big books.
They're very big books.
And very detailed.
Yes. This was like 450 pages or something. My second fun fact is that she also writes contemporary romance under the pen name Jessica Bird, which is her maiden name. And
Wait,
I did
she
not
does?
Know. I know. I did not know
Wait
this.
a minute.
I know.
What a sneaky little...
I know. So-and-so.
I have to Google that now.
I know. I just Googled one cash and it had 4.5 stars. So apparently they're pretty good. But I wonder if anyone who is a fan of the Jessica Bird books knows that it's J.R. Ward. You know what I'm saying?
What did she write under first? Was she J.R. Ward or did she do
I
contemporary?
do not know that. I will find out for next time. Or maybe I'll drop that on Patreon. Patrons, I'll let you know.
That is so interesting. You got me. You got me with that one. You got me so good.
Well, today's book is Lover Revealed, and we are going to be talking about Butch and Marissa, the ultimate socialite. One of the council members, one of the first founding families. Also, she's like 400 years old or something. Like,
Yeah.
and she has like the purest of the pure blood. Like literally, she's if she was a human, she would be the bluest of the blue bloods.
Yes.
And Butch,
And apparently she's like the most beautiful, like, you know, like the woman everyone aspires to like look like.
yes, but also like untouched and feels so unworthy.
Yeah.
And is kind of an outcast and has no friends because
she used to be married to, or the Shellin to Wrath, and he didn't want her.
Right.
How can you be the most beautiful? It's like being Beyonce.
Yeah.
And then like Jay-Z don't want to touch you.
Yeah.
He's just like, nah.
Yeah. She's like, I want to get on that surfboard. And he's like, no, thank you.
No, thank you. This is my wave.
This is my wave. I'll catch it with someone else. Thank you.
Which is kind of low-key what he did.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, as always, we're in the paranormal romance. I mean, they're vampires. It's been stated before, but I think it's worth a recap that all of these books only make sense because these people are bonded to each other.
Yeah.
Because even though Butch is a human at the beginning of this book, we end up finding out that he has an ancestor, or his dad is full vampire or a partial vampire?
All I know is that he's from the line
of Wrath. And he eventually
and
becomes...
his mom cheated, like, low-key.
Yeah, low-key cheated during a snowstorm. And I was
Yeah.
like, I mean, if you're stuck in a hospital with a vampire, what are you to do?
What are you to do? And he probably bit her neck, and she was like,
Yeah, she probably O-faced hard. Yeah.
So hard.
And then Butch had a terrible childhood because of it. And he had just kind of a shitty, lonely life. I actually really like the scene where he tells Marissa and opens up and lets her know that he not only wants to become a vampire because of the bond he feels with V and the brotherhood and his purpose to help people, but also because like he feels like he's gonna fit, like he never fit in the human world, and now
he'll have a family.
He'll have a place.
Yeah,
which I thought was quite a nice little sentiment.
That when he opened up, that like got her around to his side to like letting her be okay with him like transitioning,
totally,
or whatnot.
Yeah. But let's scale back. So the beginning of the book is Butch dying, basically. He's on death's door, knocks on it a few times, walks through, comes back out, walks through, comes back out. And Vicious does the only thing he can think of and sends in Marissa, knowing that Butch is bonded to her, even though he's a human, and that she might be the one that will keep him on this earth.
Yeah. But I feel like the book even starts before that, because Butch gets the Omega puts his little baby pinky finger into Butch's.
Fair. I skipped right over that. I was like, that's not part of romance. Tell us what happened, Shani.
Okay, so this book starts with Butch getting taken by the Lessers, and then the Omega being like over him, thinking like, oh, I can utilize Butch. And so the Omega like cuts off his little pinky finger and cuts Butch open and puts his pinky finger into Butch, and then like closes him back up and sends him back out into the world where he's like left for dead, you know, or whatnot. And then so when they find him, and a Vicious finds him because he, you know, made him drink his blood in the previous book when he forced him to drink it. Yeah. Because he had that vision.
He's like, ride out that, oh boy.
You know?
They have so much homoerotic stuff going on, and I'm like, get it together.
First of all, I'm like,
here for it.
I love this.
I love the tension.
And the tension in this book as well. But so that's how Vicious finds him, and then he ends up, you know, being in the hospital, and Havers is taking care of him, but you have to have like a hazmat suit to go in, and Vicious and Marissa, that's where they come in.
So Vicious had cut out the finger.
Yeah.
And he was using his hand to heal him. But his blood was black like a lesser, and it turns out we find out in a couple of chapters his jizz is black, which is, I just have to state right now, the grossest thing of all time.
Yes.
And if I was fucking someone and their jizz came out black, I'd be like, nah.
I'd be like, I don't know what STD they haven't figured out exists yet, but you have it. You have it. And I'm glad I did this in a hand job first before.
Yeah, if that had gone in here. So Marissa
black?
in the last books, I feel like I was not super excited about her. I really like Butch. I always thought he was like, I really like his repartee with V. I always thought he was an interesting character and how she was going to fit him into the thing. Marissa just seemed kind of bland in previous books. Mm-hmm. It's been super fun in this book to like get behind the curtain and see like what's going on in her mind. And I just really like that she's so innocent. But in this book, obviously she gets more sexually experienced, but more so she's innocent in like she's never taken care of anything for herself.
Yeah.
And in this book, she like stands on her own 2 feet. And sometimes that like leads her away from Butch for a while and then they come back together. But I love her character journey of being like, no, if it doesn't feel right for me, I'm not doing that. And that all sort of starts from the fact that her brother finds her in the room with Butch. She has no hazmat suit on because she just runs in there because she's so worried about him. And her brother flips the fuck out, which I would too. I mean, it's a hazmat, zone. Like, obviously that would be scary. But then later he sees her bumping and grinding all up on the Butch.
And grinding.
And he literally kicks her out right before dawn.
Yeah.
30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And she goes the only place she knows, which is she goes to Wrath and begs them to take her in. But I like her innocence when she saw that black come and she's like, I didn't know it'd be black. And he's like, ah!
So many jokes.
So many good jokes.
Yeah. So Marissa, I wasn't excited about. Butch and Marissa are two characters that I wasn't very excited about before I read the book. And after I read the book, I'm still not like super excited about them. This for me is like a book you get through in order to get to the better books.
Okay.
But they do so much groundwork in this book. They lay so many foundations. This is where you really see Blaylock and Quinn come in. This is when they're really introduced.
John Matthew gets a lot more.
John Matthew gets a ton, and Zex comes in because she fucked Butch, and she liked it.
Yeah,
and she liked it. My quote is actually about them, but you get to see more of her personality. And honestly, I really paid attention when I read this book, and I realized that even though I've read this book probably 3 times before this, I did not pay attention to all of the little stuff.
Okay, that has been my favorite part of rereading this for this podcast is that I actually take notes and look at all the things. I have like 55 million notes and highlighted sections because so much happens.
So much.
Like right now, I just wrote, in the meantime, we just got foreshadowing that Jane's going to appear in Lover Unbound because Wrath says, I feel like we need an in-house physician around here. And I was like, this bitch knew what was happening in all these books.
Yes.
It's awesome. It's so much fun to reread and like see all the little spider cracks and
it
how
makes
everything
sense.
threads together. It's so good.
Yeah, and it makes sense because they're doing like there was, domestic violence, and so they wanted to have a physician on hand, and they're putting in place like a whole system for women to be able to leave their partners if they need to. And their society is very much like
they're all like 400 years old, so it's
yes, and really stuck in the past. They're trying to pass a motion to get all of the women
the seclusion.
So
if you're unmated, you can't leave your house or do anything
without
basically.
permission.
Yeah,
from like I don't know, the man of the house or whatever. Which is really great. How
it's like
that was like a moment
that.
for me. She gained a point when she squashed that.
Yeah,
and she was like, wait a minute. I think she's been going along to get along for so long that she didn't even realize, like, oh, no, I am actually the voting member of my house.
Yeah.
So later on, when the vote's happening, she doesn't say anything. She lets them call out her brother's name and call for the vote, and then she's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, she's like,
pardon me.
Sit down, physician. Sit
you
your ass
You can have several seats.
down. Everyone, shut up. Perhaps you forgot since my father was alive during the last voting, but I am the elder. And I was like, slow clapping, slow clapping. You tell him what's up, girl. That was actually my quote. I was like, sit your ass down, Howard. Especially since he's such a dick to her that he's like, I'm no longer your brother from this moment on. And I was like, that is some cold-blooded nonsense.
Especially since he was like, I'm going to kill for her honor, whatever. And then it really kind of shows that she's just like an object that he's taking care of, not a sister, not a human being, just like an ego. She's there for his ego. And so I think it really shows that. And so when she tells him to have several seats, I'm like, yes. Marissa, have
Yeah.
them seats.
And it's interesting because he also does end up offering his services of the clinic to anyone who's at Safe Place.
Yeah.
So she sets up a clinic at the end called Safe Place for any female vampire, and they're young who are getting abused or beaten or have nowhere else to go. And he comes and he actually offers the clinic services for free to anyone who needs them. So it's weird because he's not a horrible person in the sense that he's a physician and he's willing to care for all these people for free and stuff, but he's also like such a priggish piece of shit who's so stuck in this old way. Even when he sees her in pants, he's like,
You look different.
yeah. And I'm like, yeah, she looks dope as hell, I'm sure, because she's like the most beautiful person in the whole race.
Yeah.
It just
I also think he was like
shitty.
I think he also felt bad about turning her out, but didn't have like all the words to really say that too at the end. So he's trying to find a little bit of redemption in his terrible behavior.
Yeah, it'll be weird to see in the future books because I don't remember this at all if he ever like forgives her or she forgives him, because I don't remember them ever having any sort of like amends.
I don't either, but
it'll be interesting to see if that comes up.
I know that there's parts of this book that I literally
there's
just
a million things
gloss
happening
over.
at once.
I had to start and stop this book so many times where I was like, wait, what just happened? Like in this book, there's a scene that I really like where John Matthew hears like running upstairs and he sees Zeta chasing Bella and Bella running down and then Zeta swan diving off like the top floor and then dematerializing in front of Bella and whatever. And he has this whole moment. He's like, I want that. Yeah. Like I want, to feel that way for someone. And he's prepubescent basically at this moment. So his body doesn't work like that now. And he feels like so inadequate.
It's just like, do you like to run, Nala? And I was like, I will die. Yes, I do.
I do.
Chase me.
Chase me now. Did you catch me? Chase me. Can you get me?
Yeah. So good.
So like, I love that scene. And it just showed me how many setup things and like world building things that were happening that I just totally either I skipped through it because I was like, blah, 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 blah. Or like, especially when I'm skipping through like the lesser scenes and stuff, that I missed all these little nuanced little things that really make the world a bit richer.
I agree.
And this book, actually, I was not looking forward to it, but after reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, my world building is so much richer. This Black Dagger Brotherhood world is richer because there's so many things I did not retain at all.
The first time I read this, I gave this book a 4. And this time, spoiler, I gave it a 5. And the reason I gave it a 5 is I still think their romance maybe is a 4, but I think the book as a whole is a 5 because there is just like the yearning that Vicious feels for Butch and like for them and for their intimacy and like him questioning if he could ever feel that and if he could ever let someone in or have sex in like what he describes as a normal way, but in a like more vanilla way, if he could even like ejaculate that way. And their sort of best friendship and brotherhood, like when Butch is getting inducted into the Black Dagger Brotherhood and he like tilts his chin up for V to like bite him, and I was like, oh, I'll die. So hot.
It was so hot.
But also,
and it's weird because that the romance isn't theirs. Like if the book's not about their romance, but there's so many of these like.
But weirdly, it is about it. It's about obviously Butch and Marissa, but it's about the three of them.
Yes,
I think
so too. But it's like it's interesting because you're kind of waiting to see what is happening, especially because there was so much I didn't retain from their interaction. So it was almost like brand new for me. And
did you want them to be a throuple? I don't know why every book that I'm reading in this series, I keep thinking perfect throuple.
Perfect throuple. Butch, Zex, John Matthew. Also, I did not get the first time around that Zex was like basically hermaphroditic looking. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. So I did know that she was much more masculine and she had the short haircut or whatever. But they really drill home that she is very much like a non-binary-esque person.
Yeah.
And my quote about her is about that, where she's like, I don't have a dick. Basically, she does. Yeah. He's looking at her and she's like, I don't have a dick, dude. Like, so, but yeah, for that, I was like, ooh, this would be a throuple. I like this. I'm here for this. Like, what's, and Zex really liked Butch, and I never picked that up on the first go round.
I remember that.
I knew that she banged him, but I didn't know that she was like willing to go do it again. You know what I'm saying?
Hit it twice.
Hit it twice. You know, she didn't want to quit it yet. She wasn't ready to quit it. And when he told her she couldn't have it, she was like, what?
You know what I liked about Butch? That I knew he had good game in his talk game with all the brothers, but I totally forgot his dirty talk with Marissa. And for me, it felt so like illicit because in his mind, he's saying like the harder core stuff, but then to her, he's like toning it down because he knows that she's like completely inexperienced. And so when he's like, "Are you wet?" I was like, "Ooh,
am I?
Am I?" Okay. And then when V is like asking Marissa, like, would you take him into you? And he's like kind of hypnotizing her. I was like, it's going to happen. The throuple.
When he's licking her wrist and he's like, I stayed here too long, but he's still licking her wrist and looking at Butch. Oh, man. I was like,
hot damn.
I mean, J.R. Ward has been pushing the boundaries. I don't know why there's not a throuple. Maybe one's coming.
I don't know there ever will be because of the bonding thing.
Listen, she has... So for me, in general, this book was a reach, right? Like, a lot of the stuff that happens, I don't believe that she necessarily stuck to the rules of her world. And I also think that there's just some stuff, even in the crazy world of Supernatural, that's just outlandish.
Like what?
Like, just the way Butch... he gets the finger in him, and then he becomes he just happens to be a descendant of Wrath, and then like these things are all too.
I actually thought that he was going to be a vampire the first time I read this because of the bonding scent and stuff. They talk about how overly aggressive he is for a human, and like, are you? They keep asking him, "Are you sure you don't have any weird stories?" But then when he talks about his childhood, how he's the only one his father beat and stuff, I was like, well, clearly it's not your dad. So I always was like, oh, well, I thought his dad was a full vampire though. That's what I was thinking.
Gotcha.
But that he didn't have or like part vampire or something. So
I just thought it was
I always thought that.
I just thought it was convenient. I'm like,
it is convenient.
Like
for sure.
He's a human. I wanted him to be left as a human. And even when he gets like the lesser in him or whatever, I'm like, and he starts fulfilling the prophecy that they have.
The destroyer.
Like I like that. But the fact that he has to get turned and they do this whole thing, for me, I was just kind of like, that just seems like a whole lot. And then there was just some like little holes here and there that I don't like because I'm a details person. I'm like, well, if you told me this, then this doesn't make sense and whatnot. And I can't remember all of them.
What did you think about the lesser who was so excited to find him?
Oh, to die? Mm-hmm. Oh, man, I actually thought that was one of the saddest moments.
I thought that was so sad.
Of the book.
The whole book is the four lesser trying to find, he thinks this other guy he found and made into a lesser is going to be the destroyer, who is going to be the only person who can actually give him oblivion instead of sending him back to the Omega to be tortured for eternity. And it turns out to be Butch. And when he finally realizes that, he like just sacrifices himself and walks up and he's crying and he's like, thank you. And Butch can't do it.
Yeah.
And so they stab him and send him back to the Omega. And I was like, oh,
and he's like, please don't send me back.
Poor dude. I was like, you worked so hard for this. Oh. And then it didn't work for you for some reason.
But he was Van?
He was the four lesser. No, not Van, Mr. X.
Oh, it was Mr. X. Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, I felt so bad for him because I was like, you poor thing. Even though you're a lesser and you're bad, but you poor thing. You worked so hard. You wanted oblivion. You just wanted to be. You don't want to kill people no more.
You don't want to kill people no more.
You just wanted to be oblivion.
And the thing is, the lessers actually didn't really have a choice in becoming lessers. They didn't really know that's what they were becoming before they became that. Mm-hmm. They were like, it was like joining a cult and they promised you, the Kool-Aid, and then you...
Yeah, and then you realize that it was not Kool-Aid.
I wanted the purple stuff. Yeah. This is not the purple stuff.
Totally.
So it makes sense where he's like, look, this is not what I signed up for. Like, I got to get out of here, And so that was actually one of the saddest scenes of the book. I was like, oh, and he's like, please don't send me back. And they're like, yeah, we got to stab you, bro.
We got to stab you, bro.
We got to stab you.
All right, after this, we'll be coming back and we'll get into a little bit of BDSM talk, as well as a little bit of Marissa standing up for herself.
You do it, girl.
Hello, best friends. Thank you for being loyal listeners of Romance at a Glance. We're so happy to have you. If you'd like to support us further, head over to Patreon, where you can become one of our patrons. We've got a lot of great perks, such as merch and a super secret discussion group where Bridget and I talk to you directly about all things romance and all things nasty. So come on over. And now, back to our show.
Well, hello back, dear listeners. Shani, I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire thoughts
Hit
about
me,
some
Bridge.
subplots. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Vicious. This is the first time that we've ever had anyone come upon him in the midst of his BDSM. Butch asked him about it, and he says it's all about consent, and I don't cross the line. Thoughts?
I thought, yes. First of all, I was really excited to get this point in the book. And I love that he says consent and not crossing the line, because if we both agree to it, then spank that ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I totally agree.
Hit
Okay,
me.
what are your thoughts about Fritz?
Who the hell's Fritz?
They're Dogen.
Oh, yeah.
How dare you? I love Fritz. Fritz is like my favorite
right,
character
that's
of this whole series. I want everyone to know that I'm actually serious. I think first of all, he's the glue that holds everyone together. And I think he's the sweetest thing in the entire world. And anytime anyone gives him any praise, like the way she describes how he's like just beaming because he's so happy to have helped them. I fucking love Fritz. How dare you?
So when you say it like that, I'm like, oh, yeah, Fritz. But I just think of him as the Dogen in my mind. Like, he doesn't have a name. See, that's how I read books sometimes.
How dare you.
I'm just like, oh, yeah.
What about Marissa and her bonfire of clothing in the backyard?
So absolutely, I was like, this is kind of like an Angela Bassett moment, you know, like where she like sets her dude's like car on fire and stuff, and she's starting a new life. So when she set all of that shit on fire, almost burned herself up in the process. I was like, yes, girl, you burn that shit. You burn that shit now.
I had the exact opposite. I was like, that is a lot of money, you rich piece of shit. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of clothes. I was like, only a rich lady would do that.
I mean,
That is crazy. You are crazy. I was so mad.
I mean, low key. but at the end of the day, I've had those moments where I go in my closet and I'm like, there's nothing I want to wear. Or when I gained a lot of weight or lost a lot of weight really quickly and put things on, and it was like, it was weird in your own body. So I kind of understood when she was like, I can't wear this. I wear this here. And I can't wear this. I wear this here. God damn it. I'm burning all this shit to the ground.
Yeah, but all your stuff maybe cost like $1,000.
Barely. I have stuff from middle school still.
I was like, if you had hundreds of thousands of dollars and burned stuff instead of just like selling it or donating it or something, I'd be mad at you.
Yeah.
Anyways,
You
she
can be
did
mad.
almost burn herself down, which was funny.
She did. And then Butch was like, I'm inadequate because I could not save her. And I
Yeah.
was like, dude, I'm going to need you to chill. Anyways, hit me.
Okay, Wrath is the king. Okay, I love him in
Yes.
this book because he does a few things. But my favorite of which was when John Matthew whooped Lash's ass and left him a bloody pulp.
Yes. Great
Wrath
moment.
was just like, I am the king. You better get in line. And then afterwards, he just holds him when John Matthew breaks down.
I know, it was the cutest and sweetest thing. It was like going from like this real strong like alpha male to like really strong emotional like male. And so first off, when John Matthew describes it as being like flying off of Lash, like being completely like airlifted. So you're like, Wrath is so strong, man.
Yeah.
And he was just like holding him while he was fighting and scratching and biting and whatever. And then he bit Wrath, and Wrath was like, oh, hell no, not on my watch. And then he pins him.
Totally.
And then he hit him with your dad would be so ashamed of you right now.
Oh.
And I was like, oh no, Wrath, come on, man. Oh God, don't do it, man.
Dig the
Don't
knife
do
in
it.
where it
And John
hurts.
Matthews just, I mean, I my dad has said that to me, and I just broke down. And when he said that, I was like, oh God.
Oh,
I
the
knew it.
disappointment is way worse than the anger.
Yes, disappointment kills.
Kills.
So anyway, I was like, yes, I really loved Wrath in this book. He did a few things that I was just like, yes,
Yeah, I liked him more in this book than I did in his book.
yes.
Actually, now that he's like embracing the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I also was really happy that John Matthew did get a happy moment in this book because he's been dealt some shitty cards lately.
Yeah.
When he gets to see chosen Layla and she's just like, do you want to inspect me? And drops her whole robe and he's just like, wait till I tell Blay and Quinn.
That is the greatest moment when he's like, yo, I gotta tell my boys.
He's not even like, wow, I get to have sex with her. Or, oh, I'm going to drink from her. He's just like, wait till I tell my friends. I loved that. I love him so much.
I do too. And I think this book starts the angst for when like you want him to get his partner. When he's like, I really long for a partner of my own. And you're just like, yes, yes. And it starts now is when I start building that angst. I'm like, oh, when's his book coming?
So Marissa and Butch, let's go back to them. It is their book after all.
Fine.
So they are actually going to have sex for real this time. They put the P in the V one time, broke the hymen and stopped, which I was like, rude. And then this is the time they actually have sex.
Yeah.
And she's like, is something happening? He's like, oh, I think something's happening. And I was like, going to Pound Town. Going to Pound Town. But then she's like trying to like, you know, like grab onto his penis and get into it. And he's like, let me see you through this. And I immediately was like, ew. Because for me, the best part is when they're into it. And you saying, let me see you through this feels like I'm the only one there.
Yeah.
And I don't like that.
Well, I didn't like it because, for the same reason you're saying, except like for me, Marissa in this whole book is trying to have her own agency. She's trying to be her own person. Everybody has controlled everything for her at every time, has treated her like a helpless damsel, like she's not capable of anything. And so she's trying to break out of that and get her own power. And at every turn, it seems like somebody's trying to take it from her. And I'm like, girl, come on, tell them to step off. This is my dick. I'm getting on this. I'm gonna ride this the way I want to ride it. If I want to ride it slow, if I want to ride it fast, if I want to ride it up and down, up and down, up and down, side, side, side. Like, I just wanted her to be like, nah, I got this.
I totally agree with you. And that is why the culmination, I think, of her thing for me was when she like shut her brother down and was like, sit down. She didn't even call him Havers. She's like, physician. So I was like, oh, what a slap in front of the face of everyone. And I love that Revenge is sitting next to her and he's just like hysterically laughing. And he's like, yes, do it.
I feel like Revenge is for the anarchy of anything and everything.
Totally.
So when she does that, he's just like, oh shit, I'm about to watch this go down.
Yeah. And when Revenge feeds her at the beginning, and Butch is like, not you, I like you. Yeah. You fed her. And Revenge is like, oh, okay, I'll give him a pass on this one.
He's all disappointed too. He's like, oh, you're the one she's in love with? Really? That's like when your dude leaves you for an ugly chick and you're like, really? That's what you... Aw, man. Like, you could totally see that. But Revenge for me wins in this book. Like I didn't... So... To be really honest, I don't care about Butch and Marissa's story all that much. Like, out of 10, maybe like a 2. But everybody else in this book makes this book for me.
I agree.
Revenge in this book, the fact that Revenge is like wants Marissa and he tells her, he's like, no, I want you. Yeah. No, I'm capable of having sex. Oh, yeah. And then he puts the fantasy in her mind. Ooh. And I was like, yo, if a fool could put a fantasy in my mind.
And then act it out. And then I would literally spontaneously combust.
I don't know what to do with myself. I spin in circles. I mean, what is happening?
I would die of happiness and orgasms.
He did everything for me. He was like, no, I want you. And at every turn, even though she's like, oh, I have another person, he was like, I'll let you go, but I'm still going to come. Like, I'm still after you. I still want you.
Yeah.
You know?
Until you tell me to leave you alone, I'm not going to pressure you, but I'm going to make my wishes known.
No, exactly. And he didn't pressure her. And every time she was like, I gotta leave, he's like, I understand. But also, until you put the kibosh on this, I'm still here. Yeah. I'm still in the game.
Yeah.
And I was in love with Revenge in this book. I was like, I want to know more.
Yes. And I really liked that we got some more clarity on him and Sex's relationship and that they're like how much they need each other. And she's like, you can't get mated. I need you. And he's like, well, you can't get mated either because you're the only female I can feed from. So I need you too. But they're like not at all sexual towards each other.
Yeah.
Because it seems like the obvious solution to a problem of you two being sort of the only half-breeds you know is to be half-breeds together and in love. And they're completely not in that at all.
At all.
Like it is just like true, like I'll watch your back, you watch mine type of relationship.
It almost feels like a siblinghood to me.
Yeah, but I really liked them. I love her. I'm excited that in future books I get to revisit her story more and more.
Yes.
Who else got introduced in the? Oh no, that was not in this book. The Moors were very briefly mentioned.
Were they?
Yeah, super briefly. Like they were watching the door and I was like, ooh, the Moors, what's a Moor? Because I think the cool thing about the world building, like you mentioned, is like getting so intricate. And so now we know, there's humans, there's vampires, there's sympaths. Now we know there's Moors because they don't describe them as like that's their name. It's like that's like what they are.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's more things? What? More? So let's talk a little bit about his entering into the Black Dagger Brotherhood and that ceremony. I love the way she describes the ceremonies and the way, like the gravitas that it feels. Like when I'm reading it, I'm there. I realize the intensity and how everyone's usually like, she always says popping off, how everyone's always like cracking jokes at each other, but they're very silent and everyone is very like in it. Like their energy is in it, and he could like feel all the brothers before him in the chamber. And I also like that it was like fairly savage.
Yeah.
Why don't you describe it to the people?
I mean, I like that every ceremony is fairly savage, from like carving your Shellen's name into your back,
Insulting
it, you know, from like all of them having to like cut their hands or whatever, or their wrists, and then the blood drains over the stone
chalice,
into the chalice. Like that to me is like, oh, we're in this. That's like, you know, when people say like, oh, you're getting married and you're like, till death do us part, and then like a year later you're divorced. It's like these.
If you carved his fucking name in your back,
you ain't getting divorced.
Not going away.
Yes, I mean you have to really want it to get in. It's like jumping you to get in and jumping you to get out.
Yeah,
you know. So I like that. My practical brain is a little bit like, there's only like 5 brothers at this point. Like, you know, everybody else has been killed or whatever. I'm like, if there were 20 brothers, would 20 of them have to have bled into this cup, you know? And I'm like, how much blood would he be drinking at that point?
Not to mention the punches, man. With that barbed thing. That sounds fucking terrible. Like, and the bites, like.
When she described like the blood just dripping down like his chest and stuff, I was just like, yo, this is.
Well, that was from the neck wounds. So let me describe.
No, from the punches, I mean, from the barb punches.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, you got to really want it.
Yeah. I mean, each guy gets to literally bite you and then punch you as hard as he can with a barbed glove. And then you have to drink all their blood.
Yeah.
And survive that without making any noise. I liked Vicious's though, because Vicious was last, obvs, for drama. And he went up to him, and she described how Butch like grabs onto his waist and brings them, like they're both naked, like skin to skin, and tilts his chin back like in an invitation. And I was just like, oh boy.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also really liked the way she described it as like a possibility that will never be explored.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a beautiful way to describe it. Because really, in another alternate reality, like they could have been lovers and together, but it just wasn't to be in this one.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they have a thing, but she never really talks about them either being gay or bi or having any other attraction to men in any other capacity besides this friendship. And I kind of like that because it kind of lends itself to this idea that people are just souls and not genders specifically. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I really like your soul. Like, I want to be with you because I'm in love with you.
I'm in love with you. Gender is not really relevant to
that.
Them.
You know? And so I like that a lot about it. It's never really addressed, you know, like we always are under the assumption that everybody is straight or always wanting the opposite gender or whatever. But I like the idea of like, no, people are just souls and you just are attracted to whatever soul you're attracted to. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think they're so beautiful. I love it. And then like, it's weird because you kind of want that to be explored, but you're like, now will that break up the world or thruple. Bridget.
That's the next line in my notes. Or it could be a throuple. I'm very excited that the next book of the Black Dagger Brotherhood is Lover Unbound, which is Vicious's story. And I am viciously excited.
Yes.
Pun intended. All right, let's talk about our heroine. What was your rating? What'd you give her? How many peach booties?
So I wanted to give her 3, but I gave her 4.
Okay, tell me why.
Because she earned back that like extra peach when she stood up to have hers later on. And for me, it was like the culmination of this book where the whole time I'm like, Marissa, come on. I want to like shake her. And at that moment, it was like, yes, girl, say it, girl, get it, girl, you know? So I gave her a 4. I thought she earned it, but she didn't earn a 5 for me because I needed her to get there a little bit sooner. And like some of the fits or places where she chose to make a stand, I was like, this is where you're gonna make your stand. This is what you're gonna die on. Okay.
I gave her a 5 because I really liked that she grew so much. Like, I feel like lot of characters don't change that much.
Yeah.
And I gave her 5 just because, like, she really did evolve as a character throughout the book. And yes, she made, as you said, obvious missteps. And she even says, like, oh, shit, now I sound like my brother. Damn it. And the other Sheelans come and talk to her and sort of coach her through, like, yes, it is scary when they go fight, but they're careful and they know that we need them and that we love them. And so they always come back to us and make sure that they're not doing anything risky or stupid. And so I liked that she had that arc.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of the arc.
I think that arc is what, for me, makes this book doable. Because I could easily have skipped over their story.
Okay. Well, you've already
you how
said
I
a
really
little
feel.
bit about Butch.
Tell you how I
Tell
really
me,
feel.
tell me how you really feel about Butch. Tell me.
So I wrote bitch Butch. So, okay. In general, when Butch was first brought up into the books, I liked him.
Yeah.
I thought I also thought like his character drove the story in a cool way. But in this book, I felt like, you know, making him a brother and him having a distant relative to Wrath, and then his romance with Marissa, where he keeps really what drove me crazy and why I called him bitch Butch is that he kept being like, no, I'm doing this to save you. I can't, like, I want to be with you, Marissa. I can't be with you, Marissa. I want to be with you. I can't protect you. I don't want to be. I'm like, dude, she has rejection issues already. Like, she's here trying to build her self-confidence, and every time you, the person who's supposed to love her the most, is tearing it down. I was like, I'm not here for this. Like, he lost a lot of his credibility in that kind of dynamic. He gained it back a little bit when he talks about his childhood and how he grew up. And I'm like, okay, now I can understand why he's a little bit of a bitch. But at the end of the day, I needed him, like, I needed a little less of that back and forth. Just don't.
So what was your score?
Oh, yeah, I didn't give a score. So I gave him a 3. I gave him a solid 3.
I'm going to tell you why I gave him a 5.
I knew you gave him a 5.
Of course. One,
But
you know
loved
I
him.
love the dirty talk.
Yeah.
You know I love dirty
His dirty
talk.
talk was good.
His
It
dirty
was
talk
good.
was very
It
good.
took them forever to get
It
to
took
the good
them
stuff, though.
forever to get to the good fucking.
Like, JR, come on.
But I liked the dirty talking.
Yeah.
I love him in Vicious, which is not necessarily his hero rating with Marissa, but I think in this book it counts
Okay.
because that relationship is so good. And I liked that he explained, like, he wanted to be a vampire to be with her and be like his blood to be enough and stuff, but that he also had outside factors. In the same way that she wanted to, like, stand on her own 2 feet and started Safe Place, like, she started that, like, separately from him, not because of something he said. Like, that was her own agency. And I liked that they both had their own agency. And then I'm just also rereading it, kind of intrigued by how the whole Destroyer prophecy was happening, and I liked how that was all going. So I gave him a 5, like 80% because of the dirty talking. And me, though, I have to be honest.
Well, our ratings, I feel like, are generally arbitrary. You get to rate however you want to
I
rate.
know I do. I know I do. All right. Well, I already know because you don't like him that much, but McDreamy to McSteamy, what do you got for me?
McAnnoying.
I said he was a McDreamy with so steam in the hood.
I do think, yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Like, if he didn't annoy me so much, I think their sex scenes were vanilla, but definitely very steamy.
Yes, definitely vanilla. This is one of the reasons this is my favorite line in the book. Obviously, I have 2. Actually, I have 3. Just kidding. I looked at my list, and I'll tell you them, Shani.
Tell me everything.
Okay. God, there was power in sex, and right now she had it all. He was defenseless, exposed, just as she'd been the night before. She loved this. And that was Marissa the first time seeing Butch naked and having her wicked way with him. And I was like, that's how I feel. I always feel like you have so much power in sex, and it's so fun to feel that, like, thrill. Like, they're at my mercy. I could do whatever I want to them.
I love
I
that.
was here for it.
You kinky, man.
I try. What you got?
Okay, I only have 2, but here's one. Butch says this. He says, just once, I wish I was enough for you. Just once. And that was like, that got me in my feels a little bit.
That got me.
You know, and because when he talks about his family not liking him, and then her being she's a socialite, so she's way above his, like, station at all. So he's just trying desperately to be even anything close to what she deserves. And so that was kind of his only saving grace for me when he would get annoying, is that like he wants to be deserving of her.
I thought it was kind of ironic that they both don't feel like they're enough.
Yeah.
Even though they're both great and love each other. They had some communication issues, especially in the first half of the book. And I was like, just talk to each other. Let's solve these problems. And then they did. And I was like, oh, there we go.
Yeah, like I like that they didn't drag on the like, oh, you came to see me. And
they
you
solved
rejected me really quickly. And I was like,
quick.
thank God they didn't.
And he's like, I'm so into you. And she's like, I'm so into you. And they're like, hooray.
Hooray, want to get naked?
Let's make out. I was like, that's my response.
Yeah.
My second one was, you may sit down, physician. I was like, snaps.
Snaps. My second one was for Zex and Butch. She told him that her name was Sympathy. She doesn't tell him her name. So she's like, just pretend my name is Sympathy. And then he looks at her and he's like, you happen to have two heads, Sympathy? And she's like, no, and I'm not a she-male either. Yours isn't the only sex that can be strong. And and I was like, yes, thank you. I am swatting away your gender standards, your gender norms,
toxic masculinity.
your toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I like that.
So that was my other quote that I really liked. But again, that was like about Zach. I loved all the side characters.
Yeah,
in this book.
I'm telling you, that's why originally I gave this a 4 because I was more focused on them, but I gave it a 5 upon second reading because of like just the world building, all those all those scenes. There's look at how long this podcast is going to be. We have so many things going on.
Things. And but I'm so excited because without this book, I wouldn't really get to enjoy Zex and John Matthews' book as much, and that angst and everything
Vicious's
that's building.
Book wouldn't make sense at all.
At all. And I love Vicious.
I love
Vicious.
The next books. You guys tune in next week. Please subscribe. We are, as you can tell, sometimes we do not agree on the characters, which I think is wonderful. But next week, it's going to be 5s all around.
Yeah.
5. Spoiler.
It's somebody getting beat. It's a 5.
It's a 5. What? What's happening? It's a 5. All right. Well, to sign off, I'll sign off with a V quote. Your flesh, V breathed. Then he paused as if asking for something. Without thinking, Butch tilted his chin up, aware that he was offering himself, aware that oh, fuck. I was like, la 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 la. Oh my goodness, what a great one. Did you have a good review? Anyone review this book? Would you like?
I did have a good review, but I think I'll let you do yours. I think what I've said has kind of summed up this review.
Okay. Well, color me surprised. I wasn't too fussed on reading Butch's book. After all, he was just a cop, and Marissa had come across as rather bland, although I did feel for what she went through. Then I started and couldn't put it down and ended up absolutely falling hook, line, and sinker for Butch. He's definitely my favorite so far. Loved him. His snark, dry humor, loyalty, and commitment to his new brothers reeled me in. That was from Bev from Goodreads. 5 stars.
Bev, 5 stars.
Yeah. But I thought it was true because, I agree. I thought Marissa seemed kind of bland. I wasn't super stoked for this one, but I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I was going to. And I agree. You do have to read it because these books are not at all designed to be read out of order. Technically, you could just pick one up and read, but I don't think any of the relationships are as deep if you don't get the books and books and books before. Especially some of the later people, when you've met them, you've already spent, John Matthew, by the time he gets a book, it's like you're 10 books in with him and you're like, for the love of Pete, just give the kid a book.
I think that there's no way you could pick it up and read one out of order because what's a sympath? What's, she
doesn't go back and re-explain
She
stuff.
doesn't, which I love.
Thank you.
And so you have to read it in order. So essentially this book for me is kind of, if I were to go see a movie, I would say I'll sit through a 5-hour movie if you tell this whole story of a book.
Yeah.
This is kind of like that. This is like sitting through a 5-hour movie so I can get all of the details,
all the juice
before I can get to the one that I really want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I like at least that usually in her series, there's only one building book before a really good one. Mm-hmm. Later in the series, they get real meh for me. But these earlier,
once you get past book,
I think
12,
Blaylock, after Blaylock,
Quinn
and Blaylock's book, I was like, what is happening in here? I don't know these characters at all. Who are these people?
That's I think that's my problem with it. Is again by the time you get to Blaylock and Quinn, I was fucking jonesing.
Yeah.
I read that book in a night. I was like, I refuse to sleep. I must know what happens. They must be together and be happy. And then you go and read those, like, the younger trainees and stuff. And I was like, some of them are good stories, but I'm like, I just don't care enough about them.
No, I didn't either. Okay, but let me actually read my review. Okay. So this is actually, I picked a review from the same person I picked from one before.
You should comment back and tell them you picked them.
I don't think it lets you. It just lets you say if it was useful or not, like click a button. So it's a bummer. But her name is Wendy, and she has the same icon with like a hula hooping woman on Audible. And it says, screech. Right, that's the title. My least favorite of the series, but still a worthy listen. My main issue with the book is that up until now, the world Ward has created and the laws within that world have been established. This book seems to stretch those laws a lot. I mean, we're reading fiction, so not everything needs to be plausible in real life. But in the world of the books, this book forces the reader to be flexible with what the author wants us to believe. I get why she did it, but this is where I have to let it go and give the author authority over her own story. That was in parentheses, that little last part. Having said that, good book. I love the interaction between Beth and Marissa. So nice to see an author who doesn't make the female characters either man-hating BFFs or so catty you want to kill them both. Ward's women are beautifully written with true wisdom and strength of character. Both Butch and Marissa are learning how to be who they really are, and like most people, they screw it up along the way. They have a slow start, then fumble the ball a lot. They struggle to understand each other. The first time they have sex, well, this book is more human, which in itself made it an interesting read compared to the first 3 books. And of course, as we move through the series, the plot thickens and the big bad is getting bigger and badder. I can't wait to get into V's story. So there's one aspect of the book that drove me crazy, which is like what she's talking about in terms of the laws of your world, which is when they have changed Butch, they now Marissa has to feed him, and then Bella has to feed him, and they're holding Wrath back because he's like, oh my God, like I can't watch this go down. But they just told us in the previous chapters that there's a whole chosen that are waiting around to feed the brothers. Like if you need to be feed,
why didn't they have
a chosen there? And they said they can get them there instantly because they can dematerialize, which they do in and out of the house at all times. And the scribe virgin is there watching this whole thing go down, and she rules the chosen. So where were they? Why did Bella have to feed anyone? You know what I mean? And why didn't Wrath the king
have to feed him?
Yeah, and then I was like, why is Wrath letting this go down? When he's like, you gotta hold me back. I was like, bitch, call the chosen. What is happening here?
Well, because they thought Marissa would be enough.
Yes, but they also said that they could get a chosen there in an instant.
Well, because Marissa doesn't want anyone else to feed him either, theoretically.
I
agree with you. Do you know what I'm saying they did not expect it, but they probably should have had a stand-in.
They should have had a standby. You know what I'm saying?
But they've never done it. To be fair, though, they've never done it before. No. So when all of them come out of their transitions, they only feed off one person. So I guess maybe they couldn't have expected that he would need 2.
Maybe, except, I mean, I thought about that, but Marissa was still weak from not fed for real for whatever, and they talk about her still being weak,
right,
and whatever. So, and then they bring Bella to the room. You
just need to. It's Beth. It's Beth.
Why do I keep saying Bella? Sorry, Beth. So they bring Beth to the room.
I get your argument.
On the scribe virgin.
I get your argument. I think it's a sound argument. I'm just saying you have to just accept that these characters were dumb and they didn't think about it.
I know, but the scribe virgin actually asked for Beth to come to the room.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, maybe she foresaw. In the book, they're like, she foresaw that this was going to happen. But if she foresaw it, why didn't she pull in a couple chosen?
He wasn't, I don't know, because she's a scribe version. As we find out in later books, the bitch has her own agenda. Machinations
she does have her own agenda. And you can't fight God either, so you're like, if the scribe virgin said
they literally can't question her, so...
Yeah. So it's
you know.
It
I think you just need to
crazy.
I think you need to just accept that they were dumb, they didn't know what's going to happen.
Damn you, Bridget.
Don't throw logic in your face. All right, well... Obviously, the book that we're going to recommend is Lover Unbound, Vicious's book, next book in the series. Or you could start at the beginning if you've never started the Black Dagger Brotherhood. Would you think that this book is worth a read?
Yes. Absolutely. It's worth a read. You got to. If you want to stay in the world, you got to do the
gotta.
work. You got to put in the work.
Got to put in time. Put in the work. All right. Okay, dear listeners. Until then, may your books be your lover.
And your hand, your best friend.
Yowzas. Thanks for listening.
Subscribe to our channel to get new episodes, clips, and more.
And click here to watch our previous reviews and author interviews.